Hey guys, it's Bill from Linden, Tennessee. Well, the Jeep, and the Jeep is back on the road, and I'm thrilled about it. Um, EV Controls, they sent me a new controller. I guess I had somehow blown out the power supply on the other one. So far, um, the word on the street is just me and another guy, Kevin Erickson, are the only two people that have killed their controllers. Kevin had a Holly bike. Like all of his inputs go into that, and then the Holly controls what turns what on. And I guess during the startup sequence of that, it cycles the outputs. I'm not exactly sure, but at any rate, that's how his got killed. And he actually went through two of them before they figured out what it was. Mine, I'm not exactly sure what happened, but it's got something to do with cycling the key on and off fast, cycling power to the controller too fast. I don't know. Chris Tapp is the guy that runs the show up there at EV Controls up there in Canada, and he's not exactly sure what's going on either, but it may have something to do with inductive voltage spikes when you open and close contacts or coil or relays or something. I don't know, and he doesn't either, but it's fixed now. So he sent me another one, and I immediately hooked it up. This was all yesterday, Saturday, and I hooked it up, and nothing happened. Nothing happened at all. I knew the power supply was good on this one because at least I had Bluetooth to the iPad, but no contactors clicked, no nothing, no. That was just it. It didn't do anything. So, like I say, Saturday I'd send him an email, and bless his heart, he is fantastic customer support. Can't praise him enough. We spent nearly the entire day. In fact, the day that I got this thing running was Christmas Eve, and he worked with me through that entire day too. So. Man, if anybody out there is trying to do any kind of EV conversion where you want to put a Tesla drive unit in it, there are, half a dozen or so different companies out there that provide controllers, either external controllers like EV Controls does, or where you replace the Tesla board, like Open Inverter as sort of an open source way of doing that. But I can't recommend enough EV Controls. They're just really good. So, and once you get it going, it runs. It's wonderful. The throttle is just like driving an actual Tesla. It's just, it's very refined and feels great. So, yeah, spent pretty much all day yesterday going through this. And what it ended up being is I've got my BMS, the Orion BMS, I've got it set up for one of the multi-purpose outputs. Whenever the lowest temperature of the battery is below 4 Celsius, I wanted it to turn the Regen Enable off, so that way there's no regen when I've got cold batteries, because that can really damage lithium batteries, and so that's what I wanted to do. And I had that hooked up to the Regen Enable wire to the controller. So what happens is you turn the key on, the Orion comes on, senses the temperature, and grounds that output. That's what it's supposed to do. I can't really fault the BMS for it, but it grounds that output. And then at the same time, the EV Controls controller is doing its startup thing, and it sees this ground before it can do its thing. And if it sees a ground on any of its inputs being forward, reverse, neutral, and this Regen Enable, if it sees a ground on those, then it won't start. It won't do its startup sequence. It won't send 12 volts to the inverter, to the Tesla inverter. It won't do anything. And basically, it took us all day to do that. He had me, try and reflash the firmware on the controller, and I was chasing wires and continuity tests and had things strewn out all over everywhere. And basically, how we figured out what it is he had me take the control board out of the Jeep, put it on the bench, run 12 volts to it, and then try and do the flash, the reflashing of the firmware. And that worked like a champ. And as soon as that worked, I started thinking, like, what in the world could possibly be different between now and the last time I drove this thing before the power supply went out? And the difference is that multi-purpose output that I had put on there. I put that on there when the Jeep was sitting here, and I was waiting for the new controller to come. That was it. Once I cut that wire, and it fired right up, and we're back on the road. So that is fantastic. I'm thrilled about it. I did about 50 miles today, It said I used about 55%. I had about 55% of my battery left, so it wasn't fully charged. I'm not using the full 90 kilowatt hours of the pack anyway. I'm undercharging it I'm probably undercharging at 20%, so I'm only getting up to 20% state of charge. So, that means I'm at 82 or 84 kilowatt hours total. And then it being as cold as it is, the batteries themselves were actually nearly at freezing, nearly at 32 degrees Fahrenheit. So with all of that, getting, 50 miles at roughly 50% battery means that on a cold day like today was, that I got a 100-mile range, and I'm kind of okay with that. This is a brick of a car. There's actually a meme going around. It's hilarious. They have a fluid dynamics computer model of a Jeep going through the air, so like to show its wind resistance and where all the turbulence is and all the high pressure and low pressure zones and all that stuff. And they're basically everywhere. There's not an aerodynamic part of this entire thing. And then they had a cow. They had a cow sitting next to it on this meme, and the cow was like, the meme at the bottom said, Jeep less aerodynamic than a cow. So that kind of gives you, so anything over about 45 miles an hour, and this is just an energy hog. And I was cruising about 60 miles an hour for the majority of the day, so worked like a champ. I can't be happier. But I don't want to blow out another contactor. I'm sorry, I don't want to blow out another controller. Another issue is if anybody else were to drive this thing, what do you do when you sit in the car? You turn the key forward and then you start it. You turn the key all the way forward again. Now what that does is it kills the power to all the accessories. So that's the kills my key switch ignition going to the controller. So if you were to rotate the key forward all the way to quote start the Jeep, then that could cycle the power to the controller and could potentially damage it. And there's no way of turning that off. That's built into the starter switch of the Jeep. So, and I have like a maintenance switch underneath the dashboard. The intent of that being that I can, if I'm at a show and I just want to play the stereo or something, I can flip that switch, and then the controller wasn't on. The controller's not on, and if the controller's not on, then the coolant pump's not pumping, and there's just no reason to have all that stuff on if I'm just sitting at a show with the stereo playing, or sitting anywhere with the stereo playing. So I had that little maintenance switch down there, and also if I was doing maintenance to it, if I was setting the BMS or fixing the, updating the EVIC display or whatever, and needed to cycle the key, then I could just turn that switch off and I wouldn't have to worry about damaging the controller. However, obviously I didn't do that. So I need a more foolproof way of this. So what I come up with was a holding circuit. Just quite simply, I put a holding circuit in there. And those are very, very simple to do with a relay, just a standard relay. All you have to do, well, I can't tell you all you have to do. Just go on the internets and search YouTube for holding circuits. And there's this guy that'll get on there. And I think he's like an HVAC guy, or he does different kind of systems, but he sort of explains how to do it. Let's go over here. I can show you a schematic on exactly how to do it. So this is my little schematic here. So basically what happens is you got your key switch ignition here. You got some sort of a momentary switch, and then you got your coil for your relay, and then your contact of the relay. So this is actually the relay. I've got the numbers labeled. So 30 and 87, 86, and 85. Those are the numbers of any standard relay. So what you do is before the momentary switch, that comes over here. So this is your key switch, that's your key on ignition. That comes over here, goes through the contact, and then goes out to your TC2. And I also wanted to do the vacuum motor, but I'll explain why that's not going to work. So it comes down here, but there's no power going to the coil, so this is open normally. So you turn your key on and it's open, nothing happens. These are not energized. As soon as you do this momentary switch, you close this contact, give power to the coil pulls this relay closed, and then sends power to your stuff. But it also sends power up and around and over to the coil circuit. So as soon as you contact that, Power comes down here, goes over, comes up, goes around, goes over, and energizes the coil. Now, the electricity doesn't know or care where the electricity is coming from as it goes through the circuit. So whenever you let up on this momentary switch, the power is still going through this, energizing that coil, keeping this contact. So it just keeps itself on. It's a holding circuit, and that's how that works. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool, actually. And then the key switch ignition, that's how you break this. You always have to have a way of breaking a holding circuit, because if you didn't have this and you just had, just straight battery power to that momentary switch, you would close it. It would set up this holding circuit, and if you didn't have this here, there'd be no way of turning it off. So you always got to have some way of turning it off, and that's what the key switch does. So you get in the car, you turn the key on, and nothing happens. You go over there, you hit the momentary switch. It performs a holding circuit, and it powers your accessories. Now, I wanted to do the vacuum pump. I wanted to do that pretty bad, actually, and I'm still going to try and figure out a way to do that. May end up having another relay. I don't know. The problem is this vacuum switch is one of the original relays in the Jeep's power control center, in the Jeep's fuse block, and it gets a ground to activate that relay, and that ground comes through the vacuum switch. So I don't really have a way to get to the positive side of the relay for the vacuum pump. So at any rate, I can't do that just yet, but I would like to do that, because let's say I am at a show, or I'm at somewhere where I just want to have the radio on. At the moment, the key would have to be on, of course, which means that the vacuum circuit is energized, and the vacuum pump comes on for 10 seconds or something to charge itself up, and then periodically there's I've got a vacuum leak somewhere. I don't know where. It's probably in the boost cylinder, the brake booster. It's probably in there. One of the seals in there has gone bad, and eventually the vacuum drops below the threshold of the switch, and it cycles back on, and the pump comes on for 5 or 6 seconds or something like that. And it's just kind of annoying. It's not a big deal, but it's just sort of annoying. But anyway, that's how a holding circuit works. And I'll show you how this works, and you'll also get a demonstration of I got the charger going, of course, so yeah. So everything looks pretty normal. Turn the key on, vacuum pump is on, but I don't have any contactors or anything for the thing. So I've got a little momentary switch right here. Push that. The light stays on. Contactors happen, and we're in business. And that's how that works. So it's pretty cool, but you can't turn it off. Like, you can, push that all you want to, but it doesn't do anything. The only way to break that holding circuit is to turn the key off, which is fabulous, because why would you want to do it any other way? That was always a concern of mine too, with that switch that I had under the dashboard. I don't know under what conditions I could accidentally hit that switch, but if I was driving down the road and accidentally hit that switch and cut power to the TC or the EV controller, that would cut power to the entire system and probably cause all kinds of damage. I'm not exactly sure what it would do, but it wouldn't be good. So yeah, there you go. You probably can't make it out, but that's a fun little switch right there. It says fire missiles. I've had that little switch in my in my toolbox for I don't know how long. I've had that thing for a long time, and I always just thought it was cute and quirky and never really knew what I'd do with it, but there it is. So that's pretty cool. That's what I've been up to. I finished. I should have taken a video, or at least taken a picture of I took all the carpet out of the front and put soundproofing. I put what's that stuff called? Dynamat all over, stuck Dynamat all over the floor, under the seats, all in both footwells, up on the transmission tunnel as far as I could get it, and that I think has quieted the gear whine a bit. The whine itself, I think, is getting better with miles, and the Dynamat, sort of took the harshness off of it. I gave everybody a ride today, and as I was leaving his house, he was sort of standing outside of the house and was watching me and listening to me go down the road, and he said it's actually quite a bit louder on the outside of the Jeep than it is on the inside. He heard it, quite a bit down the road. Oh well, I guess I can't sneak up to anybody going 50 miles an hour, so that's fine too. I also got me some good floor mats. Those are those WeatherTech floor mats. They're a little bit pricey, but they fit beautifully, and keep things kind of clean, keep things from being a mess. Yeah, so that's what I've been up to this weekend. So that's pretty awesome. It's been fun. Glad to get that holding circuit in there. That's a pretty cool addition. Kind of recommend it to anybody doing that. I don't really like push to start switches. I think it's kind of silly, but in this case, I think it's necessary. It's gonna prolong the life of my controller, and that's good. So, as always, thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you later.